the sky. Tonight we're coming alive. And our hands will touch the sky. Tonight we're coming alive. From the dust we will awaken, and life will fill our veins. But these are the moments that we live for. Keep it inside of me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to PAX. Please take your seats and silence all cell phones. Our program begins now.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and gentle NBs, we welcome you to Tabletops. We welcome you to Tabletop System Wars. Thank you for joining us. Yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. This is the greatest panel at PAX year after year.
Yep.
Yep. You can tell because we are almost tied for the most panelists.
Who beat us?
I don't know. I just assume there's somebody. And
How many people have been with us all 6 years?
oh my gosh.
You guys are lunatics.
Wow.
Thank you.
Because we've been at every PAX since they got out of the Heinz, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No? We
All
missed
but
one?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so one of these people is right, and that's how we play our game here today. Because this is Tabletop System Wars. This is the greatest show at PAX because this is the show that's all about you guys being the best and these guys probably being wrong. What we do here is we're all user-generated content. We are going to invite you to come up to the mics here, and you're gonna pitch us your game idea, okay? This is the game you've always wanted to run, but you didn't really know how to run it. Either that, or you've heard of this panel before, and for an entire year, you've been thinking about the worst idea you could possibly pitch to us. And you wanna see what these guys come up with. I'm gonna do a quick warm-up round with our panelists here to get them ready. If you want to start lining up to the mics, you can, but you don't get a prize or anything. So just come up if you've got a fun idea, and you like standing, all right? So, my panelists, I'm gonna first have everyone introduce themselves real quick. Then I'm gonna give you the idea, because if I give you the idea early, you'll have time to think about it. It won't be a good test run, okay? So I think if can we start at the end with the best panelist?
Woohoo, yeah.
Yeah.
What? I introduced
Yeah, introduce yourself,
Then
yeah.
you're going to give me the idea. I'm Meg. I'm from Games by Playdate. We make games like Slash and the new Slash 2 that just came out on Kickstarter. And some role-playing games too, but Slash is our good one.
Yeah.
I'm Matt Miranda. Mostly I'm a game hoarder. I collect and play as many games as I have the chance to, and there's a lot of dead brain cells dedicated to RPGs here.
Yeah.
I can attest to that. My name is Bob Smith. I'm with the Gamer Assembly and Battleground Games and Hobbies. You can find Battleground in the exhibitor hall. Go buy stuff there. We sell things. Middle-aged white guy gamer. That's me.
In that order.
Yeah, extra emphasis on the middle age.
Hi, I'm Jim White, otherwise known as TW Wombat or just Wombat. I edit games on the side after my day job lets me get free, and I have been playing since, good Lord, 1981. So I have a massive collection of stuff like Matt and middle-aged white guy like Bob. So
And Jim's older than me.
oh, shush.
Jim's been playing D&D longer than I've been alive.
True story.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Brent Newhall. I'm an indie tabletop RPG designer. About a dozen games to my name. Probably the most famous is The Whispering Road, which is a Hayao Miyazaki-style tabletop RPG.
My name is Tracy. I read, play, and run a lot of games. I volunteer at Games on Demand and occasionally run JiffyCon here in the Boston area.
Yeah. Oh, that's why there hasn't been a JiffyCon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
So my name is Brian LaBerge. I am your moderator. And, oh, that was a good echo on that one. And I can't control the volume of my voice because I was originally a theater person who got into all sorts of RPG type things. I also pretend to own a game company. You can find it on the internet. That's Beer Star Games. Beer as in the drink, star as in the thing in the sky, and games as in the French for gamin. So now we're going to do the quick test round here, okay? And we're not going to go in order here. You have to have a good idea, okay? Don't open your mouth if it's not a good idea. So here's the thing. They want to run a game with no zombies. There cannot be zombies in this game. It's very important to them. And it's got to be rules light with dice they can find in board games in their house. And the villain has to be the Monopoly man. What system would they run that in?
What are they doing?
They are defeating the Monopoly man.
No, yeah, but
You'll hear that a lot from Tracy.
like there's no zombies, but are they just sitting around? Can we play poker?
Listen, they just know the Monopoly man is evil, and they want the system to support that.
So you want to take down capitalist society?
That's not what I'm saying. You're right. You're asking too many questions. Who has the right answer?
I have the right answer.
Yeah.
The answer is Rhesus.
Oh, Rhesus, why?
Because Rhesus is a small game where the rules fit in a paragraph. It uses D6s, you create cliches, you roll on those cliches, and they tell you if you succeed or not. That's the entire system.
That sounds pretty good. Anybody have a better
Well,
answer?
it will be good, but Brent is wrong. The
Yeah.
correct game for that is Fiasco, because this game sounds like it's going to be a complete train wreck from beginning to end.
Good point.
That's the type of style we're looking for in a game of Fiasco.
Fiasco requires too many dice. I suggest Misspent Youth, which is a game about troubled punk youth taking down the authority, in this case, the man, capitalism,
Yep.
as iconified as the Monopoly man, apparently. It requires 2d6, which should be easy to scrounge up. It also has very fixed format in terms of how long it's going to be. So it's going to be, there's basically 7 really cool scenes that happen, and it only needs 2d6.
Great. No? Okay.
No, I've got one. I'm
yeah.
going to go with Monster of the Week because I think that the Monopoly Man could be one of the monsters.
Oh, yeah.
And it's powered by the apocalypse, so it's just D6s.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, Meg's right, because I don't know the answer. I don't know enough about Misspent Youth to say you're right.
It's on Tabletop.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
Meg's right.
Tabletop.
That was a good example. Thanks, guys. Thanks. All right, now we're going to go to you guys, all right? And we're going to try to get a little bit more energetic for you, because I feel like I'm the only one trying here, guys. All right? I want to start at this mic, because it has a line. Would you go ahead and let us know what your fabulous idea is?
So I don't get enough pain at work. So I want to run a game where it's all about inter-office politics and backstabbing and like owning my fiefdom of all my engineers and everything like that, and making sure that no one else can get their project done, and emailing the CEO bad things about my teammates and stuff like that. What would I run for that?
Is this a one-player game?
It's not cooperative, but it's definitely.
Well, while everyone else thinks, the correct answer to that is called Murders and Acquisitions. It's basically the game you just described.
Failing that if you can't find it, because a lot of Bob's games are you can't find. Fiasco. Fiasco has play sets that are exactly that.
Yeah, I played one yesterday. It was all about cubicles and people in cubicles.
It's called The Cube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you could easily retheme paranoia for this.
Oh, yes.
Or bureaucracy is like a whole element that you can incorporate and make bureaucracy tests and just fail and get murdered.
Yeah, no, I need to jump in here because I really think the game that you want is Apocalypse World.
What?
No, absolutely. You got to hear me out real quick. So a corporate environment is essentially the end of the world. And in Apocalypse World, what you're really measuring is how much you can influence everyone else around you in ways that they have no control over. It can't be a fun game because it's about your office. So we want to make sure that it's just as painful for the people who aren't currently in control as everybody else. And since it's about The Office, you really want a little sadomasochism in there.
That's the worst idea I've ever heard.
That's bad, right? No one likes
He did say
that.
he wanted more pain.
Tracy,
so-
just wait. I'm sure a worse one is coming.
Yeah.
Tell me why I'm wrong. Go ahead, right now, go.
Because Apocalypse World is designed around a future apocalypse. The playbooks don't support that at all.
Where does the gun lugger fit in this program?
I think we would get in trouble on Twitch if we described
Well,
it.
this is true.
Yeah.
What are we rated right now?
Where
No, we're-
does the
no, we're
Skinner
rated.
fit in this game?
Rated what?
You've never met a Skinner in your office?
Just like no children.
I've not.
All right, you know what? I'm right. Next question. Okay. You're right there.
Hi. I'm an experienced RPG group. We've played a lot of the major systems. We like RPing, and sometimes a whole session will go by without combat, but all of the major conflict resolution eventually comes down to combat scenarios. And I want to run a game where the climax is solving the mystery instead of the climax is beating up the bad guy. So what system would be good for focusing on just mystery solving, and how do I write the mystery so that it can be solved, but it's not solved
Yeah.
immediately?
Are you pre-planning the mystery, or do you want the players to come up with it during the play?
I'm not opposed to being flexible, but I would pre-plan the mystery.
There's an answer. Why are you saying? Go ahead.
The Gumshoe engine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
No.
Gumshoe engine.
Any of those.
Bubble Gumshoe. Bubble Gumshoe is fun, and you can play like teenagers, but you can it could be who stole the bike or who murdered the prom queen, but you can take that in a lot of different directions, and it's Gumshoe, so it's
Yeah.
all about investigation.
Right. So if you just tell your friends that it's not called bubble gum shoe, like lie and tell them it's called like mystery death, right? And so you can still run the gumshoe system and they'll accept it, at least at first, and then you can tell them it's bubble gum shoe. Because
Yeah.
I have a feeling your friends will be weirded out by the teenager solving mystery on the cover.
And if you want to
Yeah.
sort of start and then go to there, Call of Cthulhu. Because Call of Cthulhu is all about investigating weird things and finding out what happens. The problem is everyone goes insane. All the characters just will go insane, basically.
Brent, actually, the problem with Call of Cthulhu is the rule system in which it is impossible to actually solve mysteries.
What?
Yeah.
If we want to go with Cthulhu, let's do Trail of Cthulhu,
Oh,
which
Yeah,
is based on
Gumshoe.
Gumshoe. Yeah.
Yeah. So at least Gumshoe gives the players the ability. Like clues will drop into their hands
Yeah,
as you play. So it solves the mystery. It solves the mystery of, oh God, they didn't roll this thing and now they're stuck somewhere. If you want to give up on having the plot solved in advance, I would recommend Inspectors.
Yeah.
Especially if you want a comedic element too. So the players, when they roll, if they roll well, then they get to narrate what happens. So you start with a very weird sort of situation, and they get to, as they investigate, they can introduce what the problem actually is, and then they get to deal with it. And when they roll poorly, you as a GM get to introduce complications.
Inspectors is basically Ghostbusters as a reality TV show.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, so
It's hilarious.
everyone gets 20 points except for Brent because he was wrong and Tracy because he could have stopped. Your turn.
Hello. I want to run like a Bring It On style, like dance combat, like RPG, where you go around to like different areas and like start in your neighborhood and go all the way up. But I want it to be a little bit crunchy because I want my players to agonize over how hard they're getting served by the YMCA Brother Sisters program.
So
I want to play this game.
Yeah. So I got to know, are the players all in the same dance crew?
Yes.
Okay, that's important. That ruins my answer.
Now, the level of agonizing detail, is it about the dancing or the interaction between them and their nemesis?
I hadn't really thought through it that far, to be honest.
What are you doing at the front of the line then?
No, that's fine. You're okay. Hey, what's the Mobile Frame Zero game about the mech pilots? And it's really about the pilots, not the
Firebrand.
Firebrands.
that's it.
That's what I'm thinking. Because what it's really about, it's not about, yes, the stress of combat is there, but it's about how stressful it is, not about the combat. So yeah, you can play through those dance scenes, but at the end of the day, it's about dealing with the fact that Frankie was a step late on the third row, and it screwed everything up, and it cost lives.
So I'm going to take this in a different way.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bunch of work to reskin it. but
No.
go find the old. He wants something very specific, and we need to skin.
Okay.
The old West End Games Jedi fighting game. Whoa. Because you turn the Jedi moves, the combat moves, into dance moves. You've got to pick what you can do. You have the very specific crunchiness of how this happens and what reactions can respond to it. And I think you could make something out of that.
I don't think you want that much crunch. I think that's going to be a bad idea because you have to design these opposing teams that then they're dealing with every session. That's just going to be a pain in the ass. I suggest you retheme worldwide wrestling. Yeah. Now, it's powered by the Apocalypse, so it's 2d6 and add a stat, and you've got a list of moves, but each player could be a different type of wrestler, and there's a tension here between like there's a manager who's telling you, you two are going to fight, and you are going to lose, and you're going to win. The players may or may not have to. They don't have to abide by that if they want to win and get the glory for themselves. Mm-hmm. So I think that sort of tension between the team will also be exciting, as well as like, okay, now you deal with this other group that comes in for the competition.
And Worldwide Wrestling has like really nice scene distinction between the fight and the prep for the fight that's public,
Backstage.
and then the backstage, the real backstage. So that's Tracy. That you got your points. You know those points that everyone else got, they're yours now. Get out of my line.
Thank you. He's now broken even. Yes.
Hi, I want to run a game where it's a straight up gangs in New York style, gangs fighting in the middle of the streets with each player controlling a different gang.
Yeah.
And they have to have mechanics to recruit members, make alliances with other gangs, and absorb other gangs.
Blades in the Dark. I mean, it's if you've got gangs.
No,
and
but
you
they're,
have-
they're each separate gangs.
Yeah, but you in Blades of the Dark, you can, and there's like an off scene, and you can like help like build all the different gangs too, and help control those.
Blades in the Dark is really like the players together are one gang, and they're upping their gang
Yeah,
as they play.
I'm still like if you're talking about gangs and darkness, I'm still standing by that.
I would just go straight up Apocalypse World.
Apocalypse World?
Apocalypse World.
No.
And you can each take the move such that you have a gang, and now the question is, what are you doing with that gang? Like, just shooting each other is a really bad idea, because you're just going to decimate your gang, and then you'll be very sad.
But there are certain characters you can play in Apocalypse World where your character actually controls a gang or a group.
Or followers.
Or followers, so
Creepy
like
cult
you could
followers.
each be that playbook. That would be weird though.
The PvP works really well, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually going to say a spin-off of that, which is Monster Hearts, because in Monster Hearts, you can easily have each playbook control a gang, but you can still have a very unique set of personality mechanics for each individual, because at the end of the day, that's what those moves really come down to. It's not necessarily about being a vampire, it's about how badass of an individual you are.
That would only work if your gangs are entirely encapsulated in high school.
No.
And our vampires and werewolves.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow.
you've asked this man, reskinning is just not the option here, because there are other games that do this.
All right, tell us.
There was a game called Gangsters that was an old TSR game.
Does it? Can you buy it?
I think it might actually
No,
be
that's
on
a no.
Drive-Thru RPG. I would check Drive-Thru RPG for it. I think it might be there.
Gangsters.
Gangsters. It was an old TSR game.
All right,
Oh, Gangbusters, thank you.
Well, you didn't even know the name of the game.
So no points for me. You were still wrong, Brian.
I was. I accept my wrongness.
Gangbusters, the
since
thing about
every single
Gangbusters is
panelist.
set in 1920s Chicago. So it is that sort of flavored of gang. It's not a modern. It's going to take some work to get it up there. I would suggest going with something like Fate. I mean, if you are controlling, if each player is controlling a gang, that might be interesting to play the characters, the gangs as characters, and just find the attributes that way. So I'd give that a
Are you
shot.
done being wrong?
I am totally done being wrong.
Okay, so right before I correct you, I do need to correct this gentleman. I do have it on good authority that Jim, in fact, is the world's okayest DM.
Oh, yeah.
Not you.
And that's what the person at the Mike's T-shirt
Common, I'll
says.
share, it's fine.
Thank you. All right, so what you're actually looking for is a bit old school, but it is the teal box companion set from the original D&D series of colored box sets. It
Yeah,
gets
that's easy
into
to find.
detail about mass combat of armies, but focusing on the fact that those armies have leaders and the impact of those leaders in mass combat.
That does sound exactly like what I'm looking for.
Wow.
And that
The
might be
teal
on
box
Drive-Thru.
from
That is on
first
Drive-Thru.
edition?
I'm pretty sure that's on Drive-Thru now. So.
You know what?
How do I drop this mic?
No, you can't. You have to reuse it.
Okay.
All right, you know what? Bob wins because, I mean, that was just the sincerest response. Thank you. Thank you. Get on my line.
Hi, I'm looking for a game with the mechanics where characters can have agile adjustments and development. And what I mean by that is, I'll start it this way. If any of you have played like Path of Exile or Transistor, things where rather than having a started spell set or set of abilities up front, they will develop their characters and then they will collect abilities that they can almost slot in and out and combine to make those types of abilities. I want to be able to provide mechanics to the players that I think that they might need and have them have a limited resource pool of, here's a bunch of abilities, hope you can choose the right ones for the fights that you're going to go to.
Have you seen the tabletop version of Fate with Ryan Macklin?
I have
Because
not.
he basically does that with Fate.
Yeah.
You start the game and you have this vague idea, okay, you have your top 2 attributes chosen at the start of the game, and then as you go through the game, you're like, okay, well, we're in this situation now, let's define a stunt for you, which gives you a bonus in this situation, but can also give you a detriment in other situations. And it's a very, very collaborative way of just building your character as you go.
That's so
that
wrong.
might be-
That
might be
could
the way
not
to
be
go.
more wrong. The fate, and the whole idea of fate is that like you're setting up these aspects of your character that are already established, and so it's harder to work into them. The game that I hate, I'm taking Tracy's thunder right here, but I'm gonna say Burning Wheel, because in Burning Wheel, like the whole point is that you start with like a basic character. You don't even know who your character is yet. You do like create a character, but your character as it stands needs to grow as the game goes on and change drastically.
I don't think, I love Burning Wheel, but I don't think you can
I
easily
hate it.
slot in changes for your character. I think Fate actually does make a lot of sense here. If you don't mind your characters being like hyper competent and action oriented and willing to basically penalize themselves with their aspects to complicate their lives during play.
Yeah.
'Cause that's going to drive the Fate economy.
That's a cool idea, but I disagree. Because I think the correct answer here is actually Marvel Heroic Roleplay.
No. Fate's correct. Next person. That's right. Finish your thought. Right. But you're wrong.
No.
You're okay. Come on.
No.
All right, so mine is kind of boring, and I'm assuming you guys have got this in previous years, but
D&D.
Next.
my whole group loves the world and lore of Dark Souls, and I want to run a game where I take them through the story of at least the first game, if not more than that, and preferably something with a D20 system, but not necessary.
Say the
Dark Souls.
So,
Dark Souls.
Dark
so you want a
Souls.
game that will, it'll be a challenge the whole time.
Yeah.
How do you,
What are they doing? If, like Dark
Yeah.
Souls is a one-player game, right?
Yeah.
So
but-
how is the party working together and just murdering things, or what?
I mean, yeah, like adapting it to like go through and like the scenarios and like bosses from the game, but like adapted to fit with a party setting and like not really from a story-based setting, but just like mechanically making it like.
Do you expect them to die a lot or suffer a lot or both?
I guess like expect them to die a lot, but like death like is not the end of the character type deal.
Okay. Yeah.
Tracy?
Yeah.
I'm thinking Lamentations of the Flame Princess, but I think you have something else in mind.
No, you talk about limitations.
Yeah, talk about
So Lamentations of the Flame Princess is, it's a weird horror fantasy RPG. It's very much a old school love letter to D&D, where the author has gone through and made it painful.
Your adventurers do not want to be adventuring. Like
They
they've
don't.
made a bad life choice to
It's-
start adventuring.
Yeah, anybody who chooses the adventuring life is going to die horribly. That's why you don't have a world full of adventurers. But it does have some very creative things around magic. You have a lot of choices in how you have your fighters develop. You have your rogues. You have everything that you expect to have in basic D&D, in normal D&D. But it's made weird and twisted and dark.
The adventures are also weird as hell, which I think would be confusing enough for your players. Like there's probably not, like they really shouldn't be playing, but now that they've chosen, their characters are going to suffer and die.
All right, I have another idea for you. Into the Odd,
Yeah,
which is
that was mine.
like an OSR type game, but it's all about characters trying to go and find and solve really weird, crazy shit, and it's free. So I win because it's free.
Yeah. Simpler.
If you want your players to also suffer as their characters suffer, you could look into Torchbearer, which is a old school D&D dungeon crawling thing. But the mechanics are involved, and there are conditions that your characters can suffer that you as a player are going to be agonizing over how to resolve them, how to like inventory the mini game,
But
like food or all things
If
to
the
deal with.
point is to torture the players and cause player misery, just go ahead and pick up a copy of Pathfinder.
Already tried that one.
All right, so
Wait for second edition.
thank you for your question. Tracy was right, and then he gave us too many options, so no one's right. I want to point out real quick here that I was going to let you guys go next for having the initiative of using the second mic, but then I saw you be nice to each other, so you're go.
Yes, awesome. All right, cool. So I had this idea of basically having all my players play as like students of a wizard school, not Hogwarts, but like learning magic and like writing glyphs and all that stuff, and like growing as wizards and becoming more and more powerful, and hopefully D20, but I can flex.
To what end? Are they mucking about in school, or is there a big bad they need to deal with as they muck about in school?
Probably a big bad as they're mucking about in school.
So it's basically Hogwarts.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
How evil are the characters anticipated to become?
Between not evil and I'm going to take over the world.
Well, that narrows it right
That's
down,
the way
doesn't it?
Okay, no, it's all right. I got it. I got this. I
Flexibility.
got this. You don't have to ask him any more questions. I do. I do. I'm going to take the lead on this one, okay?
I'm right behind it.
You want to look up big eyes, small mouth, a D20. Now, you can still buy this before someone says you can't.
This is true.
Okay? And what it is it takes the D20 system and it layers on top of it rules to essentially recreate any anime you want. There's an excellent wizarding system. There's very clear advancement, and it's very easy to customize things a little as you get going by multi-classing.
That I love the guy Small Mouth, but that's totally wrong because there is a game that does this. It is called, I believe, Magic, literally.
Is it a D20 system?
I do not recall.
No, so that means no.
But wait, you literally play students at a wizarding school who are learning Korean to cast magic. Magicians, thank you. Magicians. And like every Korean word is a magic spell word. And so you learn that as you're going on. There are rules for how the environment is weird and establishing that and building that over the course of the game. So magicians.
Yep. That's a cool game because you kind of learn Korean.
You do.
Yeah.
And the cool part is your phone, you set your phone to have speech recognition kick on for Korean, so when you attempt your spell, you're speaking Korean at your phone. And if the phone recognizes it, then you've successfully cast the spell.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very clever.
Seriously, yeah. And if it doesn't, you
Just to
didn't
throw out
announce
something
it.
completely different, I think that like that's where you can work into. But if you want to be super silly and start with something like as your beginning characters who are brand new, there's actually a game called Little Wizards. I mean, I actually played it last night with my kids. It's meant for kids, but it's really cute, and it's all about little kids in wizard school who then have to get better. So they're either sorcerers or mages, and they go and they learn spells, and they can turn into animals. And but you could almost start with that and get ideas for characters, and then move into like a real game.
But once they get to high school, college level, you want to run Ars Magica. It is the grad school of magic games.
That's not a D20 system. It's not even a system that's easy to learn. No, okay, so thank you for your question. Negative points to Meg and Matt for dishonoring the sacrifice of my sunglasses by making those suggestions. Thank you. Your turn.
My group is currently in a 5e campaign, and we left to save the world. We left our bard behind, so she got pissed and put our house in the Feywilds and threw a rager for 6 months.
Okay.
So that party is the campaign. So we were thinking to have combat be language-based instead of, getting pissed and fighting each other. You make horrible pickup lines on a D1. And you'd make witty remarks at people, do drinking games and such, because, it's a party run by a Goliath-raised halfling who is a bard. Because why not?
Wait, so your role-playing game is Cheers?
Basically, yes.
Pretty much.
I'm not aware of a Powered by the Apocalypse version of Cheers.
But you should write
Somebody's
one.
gonna make that.
So I'd like to ask, how much mind control and/or evil is involved in this rager? Because it sounds like she was really
It's a
angry.
bard.
So very, okay.
Yeah, like a lot. There's also a betrayer god in the basement. Don't worry about it. It's a
Okay.
wizard.
All right, well, so require a little bit of reskinning, but the Shab Alhiri Roach has several scenes that are about a get-together gathering party. There is an evil that man was not meant to know intelligence in the form of a cockroach that possesses people. It's a lot of fun.
It is.
I mean, does anyone have a better answer than that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say Toon. I mean, Toon is a game where you are essentially playing a Saturday morning cartoon, but it can be very much skinned for a reasonable thing. The idea is you basically succeed, but you roll, I believe, for ridiculous success, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be fun and goofy, but you can actually make progress towards a goal.
So I asked for a better idea?
Actually, I think that technically this is a LARP.
That's fair.
Which would then get us to Fiasco.
Wait, this is a LARP? You want to run?
No.
Oh.
No, I wanted to find a traditional setting for it.
Okay, I got scared. It's all right.
It doesn't exist.
All right, no, Bob would win, but I think your bard wins, really. I mean, that's
Truly,
pretty
yes.
awesome, yeah.
The bard always wins.
Yeah, let them know, please. Your turn.
Oh, burn the place down.
Yeah.
Yo.
Hi, folks.
Hi.
So I've always wanted to run a horror sci-fi campaign, kind of in the vein of Alien meets The Shining or Event Horizon with less Hellraiser. The thing I've never been able to get past is playing into psychological things with the players, kind of screwing with them, making them doubt their surroundings or their sanity, without taking agency away from them with too much crunchiness, and they say, oh, I'm at a 1. Everything I see from here on is a hallucination. So I'd like to be able to keep the mystery going. It doesn't have to be that crunchy. It can be story-based, but kind of a horror, sci-fi, psychological thing.
What are the players doing in this game?
In the setting I came up with, they're a salvage crew sent to a spaceship that has gone off the grid, and they get there, and everybody's gone.
And is this, like, how many sessions do you think this would be, or is it?
It wouldn't be super ongoing, but not...
yeah, that's fair.
Because there's really only one way that this goes. But not a one-shot either, maybe like 4 or 5 sessions.
I mean, that's...
I wrote this game.
Yeah, oh, you did? You wrote Dread? No, I didn't realize you did. No, continue, though.
So I wrote a game called Drop. It is about like a 5-page game. It is meant to evoke essentially alien. It is a 5-act structure. The mechanic is you roll a d6 to figure out if each character describes what happens. Then you roll a d6 to see if that happened well or something went poorly. And then that becomes harder and harder as the game goes on. And you write it down. You actually log it over the course of the entire session. And then at the end, just everything goes terribly wrong. Generally, when I run this, terribly wrong means like we blow up the planet. But if you're running it as a campaign, it can be, almost all of us die. And then you just, continue on session by session.
No, sorry. That's cool, and that's awesome that you wrote it. I mean, because you said sci-fi and ships, it starts without number. And because also on that, you can create the world. It's a complete sandbox world, so you can do whatever you want. But then the GM gets a turn and can have things keep on happening in the world, even if the other PCs aren't there to do it. So they could be the DM could actually be creating this horribleness and this horror in the background. So they leave a place and they think it's fine, and they go back, and now there's all kinds of things have happened there, which would be really weird and creepy.
If you want more
And it's free. And it's free.
So is Drop. Yeah. If you want more Aliens style, Marines coming in, killing things, and psychological horror eventually becomes a problem, I would look at 316 Carnage Amongst the Stars. Except you'd have to limit it to this one ship. Or I think as you play, you'll see that you're going to go beyond the ship at a certain point. And the characters do flashbacks as they play to save themselves from a deadly situation. And as they progress, spoilers, hatred of home becomes an issue. They've been sent away to go murder things, and they're going to keep murdering things forever until they're dead.
Okay, is there a mechanic behind that? Or just kind of...
You just find a copy and read it. Yeah. It builds a whole character sheet. It's the whole game, basically. So, the cool part is you have 2 stats, like killing things and everything else. And when you roll your killing things stat, whatever comes up is how many things you killed. And you can upgrade your weapons from 2d6 to 2d10 to percentile dice. You're just killing aliens after you visit planet after planet.
Matt, you look itchy.
No, well, I mean, I've played this as a one-shot before, powered by the Apocalypse. But there's also the 40K engine if you really want to go aliens and space marines.
No, stop it. Okay. So
There's one more. It's put out by somebody else who's in Gamer Assembly, Fitz. Aliens and Asteroids. It's basically a stripped-down version. It's D6 based, and there's a lot of exploration. And there is written into the base game. There's the Dread, which is coming to basically take over the galaxy. And there are a lot of little subtle things you can do with that to influence the players and totally screw them up. So, so give that a shot.
yeah, so Meg and Jim are both correct.
No, they're not.
Yeah, no, they are. No, it's too late. And I got to pull a Tracy real quick and give another answer, even though we already know who's right, because I said Dread so quickly. So I have to tell you guys what it is.
He wanted more than a one shot, though.
Yeah.
No, he said maybe. He just said, you see the shrug. You saw the shrug.
People can buy very non-committal. That's
Yeah.
very non-committal.
No, you can play Dread more than once. It's just a bad idea. So, Dread, excuse me, Dread is a horror system, and it's the only horror game I've ever played where I felt legitimately scared while playing it. Like the fear was real. You can find it at any store that's good.
And Dread does include an example mission that is exploring a creepy ship, very, very eventful.
Right. Yes. You pretty much described Dread in the beginning. I don't know why everyone else started offering all this
Because
stuff.
I literally wrote that game.
Yeah, but
Which wasn't Dread.
Right.
If you've never seen Dread, the mechanic is a Jenga tower.
Yeah.
So to do anything, you pull from it, and if the tower falls over.
Everyone's heard of Dread.
Right.
Because
Yeah. So
it's fantastic.
the tension builds really naturally because at the beginning it's not that scary, but as you try more and more stuff that's kind of like outside your skill set.
It's Jenga, they get it. Next question.
No. All right, get out of my line. All right, you made me, you embarrassed me in front of my friends. Your turn.
Hello. Although I am not a DM, but my friends and I play a lot of D&D together. But however, I realized that they like to play a lot of chaotic games where basically everything just goes beyond logic.
I'm shocked.
So I thought about what if I had a game where basically instead of playing as adventurers, you play as sort of the monsters or the enemies of it, and you just go off and just do some random stuff. And there's basically no objective to the game. And what system could actually fit into
All right,
that?
so first question on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolutely insane, how slapstick is this going to be?
It's gonna be a 9.
All right, so the correct answer is Kobolds Ate My Baby.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for your question.
Wait. If you wanted less slapstick.
No, he just said 9.
He said 9. He said 9.
He said Tracy. He said 9.
I'm open for suggestions.
Okay. Jason Morningstar wrote a game called The Skeletons, where you play skeletons that have been abandoned in a dungeon, and it's pretty much a one-shot where time passes and then someone comes and visits the dungeon and you deal with it. But one guy's like, I'm the skeleton without a head, or I'm the skeleton that has a shield, right? And you fast forward, you zip through various points in time with this dungeon, and then I think time advances to present day and it gets weird. Mm-hmm. But I think it's an interesting twist where you guys have the monsters.
And when we mean time advances, we mean like hundreds of years pass.
Yeah.
I mean, your skeletons,
It's very
right?
interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's totally not the game he described, but it's cool though.
But it's not slapstick.
Hi. So I want to run a game about the collapse of society at the start of the apocalypse. But in this case, the apocalypse is various sea creatures coming out of the ocean on robot legs, murdering everyone.
So I'm going to ask Tracy's question, which is what do the players do?
Basically, I'm
scream,
thinking it
or-
would be a few sessions of things are great, things are terrible, just trying to survive, and slowly everything goes to shit.
All right, so it's literally like survival horror.
So it's basically zombies, but with sea creatures with mechanical legs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are the mechanical legs important to the story?
Can the players get these legs?
Well, I mean, how are you going to get the fish out of the water unless they have mechanical legs?
Touche.
Is this a one-shot, or do you really want a campaign of this?
And this would be, 2 or 3 sessions max.
So there's a game. It's really weird, and unfortunately, I can't give you the full name because we're streaming on the internet. It's called F the Apocalypse. It's short. It's, I think, 4 or 5 pages. The idea is you have to reskin it slightly because it's demons, but it's the same basic concept. These things have come into the world. Everyone else is running and screaming, and you're like, no, I'm fighting back. It is very straightforward, very much meant to be just over the top enough to be fun, but also like, yeah, this is crazy and we're probably all gonna die.
It sounds an awful lot like a Doctor Who episode, so I'm going to go ahead and say Doctor Who Adventures in Time and Space.
So that's incorrect, because no one can afford the Doctor Who game. It's just like, it is so expensive. We can't allow that to be a suggestion, I'm sorry. But in all honesty, it sounds like Dungeon World with a really good GM, because Dungeon World has great mechanics for looming, approaching horror, and you just need to make sure that the adventurers are really
But
paying
it sounds
attention
like
to their
it's
surviving.
modern day. So I would actually retheme Zombie Cinema, which is a RPG board game.
And instead of zombies coming for you,
Instead of
it's
zombies, it's these sea creatures. The thing is, it's basically a one-shot unless you want to recycle characters pick characters who survive. But not all the players are going to survive. And it has a big little board game when one piece is the players, and the other piece is the things that catching up. And they will catch up, and they will die. So I would use that straight up.
Apocalypse World works too. I mean, you know, it's the standard here, but you can make the world an Apocalypse World so that you can make that world.
Right.
There is one other option. It's does what you want. I just don't actually like the system, which is Cthulhu Tech. Especially if you have the whales on giant legs coming through and doing all kinds of awful things. And krakens and whatnot.
What do you not like about Cthulhu Tech, other than everything? Like the dice mechanic. The dice mechanic is real bad.
Yeah, well, the dice mechanic was real bad, and depending on the DM, it always went weird places.
Yeah. All right. So I think clearly the winner of that one was the answer to the legs question. So thank you. And it's your turn. Yeah.
So I have a game that I ran last summer using the bubblegum shoe system, and this summer I'm going to be running season 2, and we need to change systems. Because, so the game essentially is inspired by Alice Isn't Dead and Stranger Things, and the goal was to start out as sort of like a Nancy Drew lighthearted Scooby-Doo mystery sort of thing, and gradually get more and more cosmic horror as the game progressed. And so during season 1, they uncovered this conspiracy, they discovered this like terrifying monster, but there was no way for them to fight back against it because they were basically high school children solving a mystery. However, in season 2, based on what happened in season 1, the first campaign when we had time for it, the players want to be able to have actual combat against them, like the creatures, which is just basically the Thistle Man from Alice Isn't Dead, if you're familiar, in addition to this government conspiracy around it. And I want to give the players the option to develop weird mutant or supernatural abilities if they're interested.
That's the kicker.
But I still want to have this same sort of conspiracy mystery going on behind the scenes for them to uncover as they play.
It's Monster Hearts.
Monster Hearts?
Monster Hearts, you're playing high schoolers who are now a little bit older. That's what Monster Hearts is, and each one of them can turn into a monster, secretly or non.
Right.
Each playbook is a different kind of monster, but then there's also a normal person, so they could be that too. But it could be like, oh my God, I'm a vampire. What do I do?
And a few of the monsters in Monster Hearts are like pretty normal until they really start advancing.
Yeah, and they can hide it, and they may not even know at first, and then it comes out.
The problem with that is that Monster Hearts is more about the interpersonal relationships and less about external stuff.
So that's actually still pretty important. So that sounds perfect.
Right.
And it's a fantastic game.
Okay.
It is a really fantastic
I
game.
have another answer, but fine.
Yeah. I mean, another
Just tell us the
aspect
other
of it is that in season 2, one of the big events is going to be like a big government quarantine of the town.
Yeah.
So that's a sort of
I played
interesting
that
aspect
game
of
in
it.
Monster Hearts. I played that exact same game in Monster Hearts.
What I absolutely have to say, though, is don't forget everything you learned about GMing when you played Bubblegum Shoe, because a lot of those GM tidbits are going to serve you really well, even though you're running Monster Hearts.
Okay.
Absolutely. The Gumshoe system is like the gift from God to all the other RPGs.
Why did you have to make us all agree about something?
Well, actually, I'm going to throw one other thing out there. Yeah, I know. So we don't agree, because we can't.
Yeah, and Brent was already wrong.
Ashen Stars, it's still the gumshoe system, but it's sci-fi. You wind up with aliens, there's some psionic things going on in there, and that can be some of those powers that the teens develop as they go on. But it is very sci-fi, it's more Star Trek out in other planets, but you already know the system, and you can pull the pieces you want back into Bubblegum Shoe, because they will work.
Yeah. So all points go to me because I'm going to say Monster Hearts 2.
Yeah,
because
that's
it's
what
just,
I meant.
You're right. Oh, is that what you meant? Then say it.
Sure.
Monster Hearts.
Thank you very much.
Is it dark and twisted here, or is it just me? I'm just...
All right, I'm looking to run a game that's basically the group is going to be a group of small gods. People like the god of the drawers that doesn't get stuck and stuff like that. Little things that you pray for.
Genius Loki by the same person who created Honey Heist. Thank you for your question.
No, go back there.
No, I'm going to go ahead and throw out part-time gods, like Hilo La Santa. That's pretty much exactly what it is. Really low rent, low budget, supernatural beings that
There's
can't do a
also
whole lot.
there's also the original one of this, which is called Nobilis.
Yeah.
It's more crunchy.
It's a little more
It is.
highbrow.
It's a little more highbrow, but it does everything you want.
Can you get Nobilis at all?
I think they recently re-released it.
Okay.
You can download Genius Loki for free. It's
If
only one
another
page
free
long.
one, though, if you're
Oh.
interested, is Godbound, where you play newborn demigods. So they're new, and it's free. And it's by the same guy that did Stars Without Number.
And that was Godbound?
Godbound.
Cool, thank you.
Hi, so I love the horror genre and I love messing with my friends even more. So I would love to run a horror game that really plays with everyone's perception of reality, where maybe it's mechanics light and really the only mechanic is after a short scene of RP, we roll dice to determine how accurate everyone's perception of reality is.
Oh, okay, that's the twist. All right.
Ideally one session. I want it to be so distressing that they never play with me, maybe ever again.
What are the players doing in the game? Just sitting around talking, or?
Well, really, it could be fit for any generic horror movie scenario, but really one that's more slow burn, less action, and more maybe where they're just locked in a room trying to determine what's going on and trying
There
to
are
survive.
easier ways to fire your players, you know.
No, but I think that the key differentiator here is that after every scene, they need to question what was correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I honestly think Fiasco with the, well, I would start with Camp Death.
Yeah, Camp Death is fantastic.
The Camp Death playset, it's very, what's the horror genre?
Friday the 13th.
What?
It's Friday the 13th, but you are campers at Lake Crystal. So, and you're like, ooh, we're like, so-and-so, like so-and-so, and then all of a sudden, like, somebody's dead. And, yeah, so summer camp goes really
I
bad.
think what works really well here is that you play out a scene, and at the end of the scene, you get a die that says this is a good for you or bad for you. But this was the truthful scene, or there's some sort of element that's incorrect, and you guys can decide at the table what is incorrect. And then you keep playing, and you can jump in time very easily. You can say, oh, this scene's actually previous to this other scene, right?
Yeah.
I'm almost certain there was also a scenario for Dread that does this.
Okay.
And the advantage of Dread is it will literally cause physical dread in your players.
Yeah.
Oh, I adore that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never played Dread with Philippe Antoine Menard.
Really?
Yeah. Oh no, it's just awful.
Okay.
He's a game designer. You might bump into him at a convention, and no
Goes by
one.
chatty DMs.
Yeah. No one on the planet is that good at pulling a block out of the tower. It's not okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, sticking with the horror theme, thank you for bringing up Dread. So when I first heard about that game, I'm like, I have to write a horror one-shot for that for all my friends.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the right theme because I wanted something more player-focused and role-playing.
That's Dread.
I don't know. What
do you mean
but
you
if I'm
don't
on
know?
multiple sessions. So the scenario that I was coming up with, that all the players are strangers on a bus driving down a lone deserted highway, and due to powers out of their control or for whatever reason, they end up at a strange hotel, and it turns out that it's the hotel from the song Hotel California by the Eagles.
All right.
Okay. And then what?
Okay, so
Wait, no. What are they doing?
No, it's still.
Can we decide?
Bob has an answer.
They're trying to not die.
They're trying to not die.
Right, and that's really the only goal, right?
Because, I mean, there is still a big bad, yeah. I mean,
Right.
but they
So,
can't leave until they
so
defeat the
there's
big
a-
bad,
there's
yada,
a-
yada, yada.
General sci-fi games, not necessarily Star Trek or anything like that, but sci-fi game called Psyrun. It's about people who are have psychic powers and amnesia, are being transported somewhere that they have been prisoner. The vehicle crashes. They are now free. Go. Don't get caught.
Yeah, but now
It's
trapped
all
in a
about
hotel, I think
it's
that
all
would be
about being
boring.
pursued. You can't get out of the Hotel California. It doesn't matter how many rooms you go. You're still there. You're always running.
Yeah.
They're catching
there.
up with you. It's all about the chase.
They don't even have.
I like the idea of the death, though. I mean, so like, there's a game called Last Girl, where it's a horror
Final
and like Final Girl. Thank you, Final Girl. But so you take turns playing the killer, and you basically play like war to see who dies. And each round, one of the players dies, and then you fill in the story around that.
I still don't understand why you can't do this with Dread.
No, I can. I just want to know if there's. I just want to see what my options are. What other horror genre, you know?
All right.
No, you're not on the panel. All right. All right, well, she's in the game or something. Yell. What?
Durance. Oh, yeah, Durance, yeah.
Why?
That is super weird. You'd have to retheme that. Like, our Durance is space penal colony a la Australia, right?
It's Space Australia.
Yeah, and I guess maybe if you have to pick the right cards such that your planet is like a Hotel California, I think it's a stretch. You could look at Durance. Durance is very interesting.
I'll stick with Dread for now, though.
Okay.
Thanks.
Wise choice.
So I have in the past attempted to run a game with a absolutely stupid number of players, like 16 plus, and I have made the mistake of attempting to do this in GURPS.
That sounds like two mistakes.
I'm gonna step back here.
They're not all in the same party. They're kind of scattered around the setting, interacting with each other indirectly, and some of them hate each other's guts. So is there a
Yeah, there's 16 people. Of course they do.
Trying to run GURPS for that much people says there's a lot of hate in the GM for themselves as well as the players. And I'm saying that as someone who loves GURPS.
Right.
So the idea would be to have a system that would allow me to run these without so much having to get everyone in one place at one time to run it at a reasonable pace, and preferably also being able to mask which characters are PCs and which are NPCs, obviously not to the people who are playing them.
Get a second GM to co-GM with you.
Wait, no, hold on a second. I'm starting to like this. So it used to be you had 16 people. Now what you're going to do is you're going to break it up so that only some of them have to show up to each session. And the players who aren't there become your NPCs, and you don't necessarily want people to realize, at first anyway, which ones are real NPCs and which ones are temporary NPCs. Is that right?
Yes.
That's kind of
I
cool,
mean, if I
though.
had to, I could do it that way, but I would prefer it so that it wasn't like the GM has to make up what somebody else's PC does when they're not
Well,
there.
then what the heck are you even talking about? Okay, Tracy's right. Get another GM.
Yeah,
you know?
you got
or-
16 people. One of them can also GM with you. You could split up into two parties and maybe you swap players every once in a while, and then you coordinate in between sessions to figure out what the other team did and work together.
I mean, that's how a lot of like good LARPs are run, because there's only you get so many people in the room, so the GMs coordinate, they switch who they're talking to, and I mean, if you've got 16 people, you might as well be running a LARP.
And so a suggestion here, just to help with this,
Yeah.
look up games like Brownstein, which was kind of the original RPG scenario, which was run by like one GM and 20 players. It's a very different style of play, but it can give you an idea of how to kind of step back and go more high level with what's going on.
But even that was basically two teams competing, right? So
Actually, no, not the way he ran it.
All right.
Yeah, originally.
All right.
Yeah, you lose all the points. I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
Hi, are any of you familiar with the board game Tragedy Looper? It's kind of like an anime-style board game, one versus many, where one is the game runner, and there's some scenario, and you need to get to the bottom of it to stop this loop of like 5 days.
Oh, wow.
And once you get to the end, if you don't stop the loop, the GM wins, and if the team stops the loop, they win. So I wanted to run something similar to that, mostly investigative, where the PCs have very static characters, and instead of leveling up, they just gain more information over time.
Paranoia.
Well, is it with a time loop as well? Or?
Yes, it's a time loop. It's the same kind of scenario, like maybe 4 times so it doesn't get stale. The point is to get to the end of the whatever I set up, some key linchpin event that's happening that they need to find out and stop.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you really need a mechanic for the time loop part, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you can do that in Paranoia and just make what the computer doing is the time loop.
Right.
The Paranoia is a somewhat goofy sci-fi game where essentially...
No, it's goofy.
It is goofy, that's true. Where you are in a sci-fi future where the computer is your friend.
Right, I'm
It is your
familiar with it, but
What
it
are-
seems like
what are the
paranoia is
players doing? Like,
So the players are trying to solve the mystery.
what's the mystery? Like,
So the
are-
mystery is there's some linchpin event, some important person is being killed.
Can you give us an example?
No,
Like-
stop.
no, I don't know what
No,
the-
Tracy. Bob is really excited.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm always excited, Brian. So this build-up thing, you really got me thinking about a mechanic from the Marvel Heroic game that was mentioned earlier called the Doom Pool, which as the players screw up or make mistakes, this looming threat, literally, of dice in front of them begins to grow and grow and grow and get bigger, and that kind of becomes somewhat of a doomsday. And it sounds like you're trying to get yourself out of this situation lest you be trapped forever.
Right. But Tracy doesn't need to ask you any more questions. I think you should really be running Trail of Cthulhu. Trail of Cthulhu has great investigative mechanics. The players really don't need to level up. There's mechanics in there to do so, but I mean, who lives that long? And they really feel like they're progressing by gaining more and more information, and you can just keep resetting the story and let them keep going. And it's got a great, like, looming horror element that will create that dread for you. Although the Doom Pool's a really cool thing, just in general. You guys should try to find that game. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Meg says I'm right.
Yep.
Okay, so a police procedural where you play multiple members of the police department from week to week, from session to session. You could play a captain one week and a beat cop the next week. It takes place in the Shire, and
I'm sorry.
Where does it?
Did you say The Shining or The Shire?
The Shire.
Okay.
You play hobbits.
Yeah, hobbit.
So it's kind of small town, but could be big city. You know, what a hobbit would consider a big city. And also, it's not just police procedural. You have to take into account personal stresses, like trouble with the family. You have to balance your job as a police officer and home life.
That's great.
This misses a little bit on the procedural aspect of it, but I'm going to suggest a game called In a Wicked Age. In a Wicked Age, the players do develop a bullpen of characters that they will sort of take turns playing through each session. People will play different characters from different sessions. There's one character that will carry over in between each session. That one is the quote-unquote winner of the last game. It can get a little bit antagonistic, but it's really centered around that bullpen of characters idea.
I'm going Primetime Adventures, just because it sounds like the most ridiculous TV show ever.
Yeah.
But one that we would all watch, right? And so.
Hobbit Hole Blues, yes.
Yeah. But Primetime Adventures, you get to essentially make your own TV show, and then you play different scenes, and each character gets, like, a spotlight moment, and so you can do anything in it. Maybe even procedural Shire.
Is this inspired by a viral tweet?
No.
Okay, because there was a tweet going around about this. Because I guess the Lord of the Rings might get a TV show, and there's a really grumpy guy in the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring who just glowers at the wizard, and somebody really wants that guy to be a detective in the TV show, and that be about that. So, I mean, I think this is going to be the new zombies, because multiple people are thinking about it. I mean, we're just going to be inundated with these shows.
No, I can reskin it. I've been writing it for about 2 years, just haven't had a system.
Oh my gosh.
And it's called the Maltese Farthing.
Wow. Okay.
Nice.
Right, thank you for sitting down.
I think Primetime Adventures is correct.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So, are any of you familiar with the book series called Warrior Cats by Aaron Hunter?
Yes.
Well, for those who don't know, it's about a bunch of stray cats in the woods who are split up into 4 different factions, and they are constantly at war with each other, but occasionally they come together to all fight against an outside force, usually a ghost from cat hell. Sometimes cat heaven helps them fight the cats from cat hell. So there have to be some supernatural elements. But basically, I would want, ideally, all of the players to be in the same faction, but not necessarily, and to be dealing with rivalries and eventually a big bad, probably from cat hell.
Okay, so what you're going to do, you need 3 books to do this. You're going to take Monster of the Week,
Okay.
And then you are going to take The Warren, which is a Powered by the Apocalypse game about playing bunny rabbits. And then you're going to take a copy of Night Witches, which is about Russian female pilots in World War II. And you're going to shuffle those 3 books together and then sprinkle magic pixie dust on it. And then I want to come play that game at your house.
Great idea.
And then add cats.
So we're running close to time, so here's what we're going to do. Does anyone disagree with Bob?
No.
Great. Thank you for your questions. We're going to do rapid fire answers to these last 2. So go right ahead.
Do you guys have any like rules for like puzzles and things that I'm just looking for inspiration?
Gumshoe.
Huh?
Gumshoe.
Gumshoe?
Throw an
Gumshoe.
interlocking wooden puzzle at your
Yeah,
players and
just-
leave until they fix it.
Literally just give them a puzzle.
Literally give them puzzles and then run Gumshoe. Thank you. Next.
So I know the responsible answer to my question is talk to the player, but do you have any game systems to help me deal with problem players and munchkins where the system will help punish them so I don't have to be the one doing
Got
it?
new players. Torchbearer.
Torchbearer, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
They can try to min-max that game. They're gonna have fun.
Oh my God.
Dungeon Crawl Classics. It's so random.
Oh, yeah.
They can't.
And I'm going to say Burning Wheel again, just because it is a game for sadists, and especially GMs
It's so
who
good.
want to hurt their players emotionally, deeply emotionally.
Okay.
That's
So,
We're at time.
All right. Yep, we're at time. So thank you all for coming, and please play bad games.